In 1989, President Ronald Reagan started a tradition that's been ongoing now for 32 years. He started a tradition when he wrote a letter to his successor, President George H.W. Bush, who also happened to be his vice president, left it in the Resolute desk in the Oval Office of the White House. And that letter was an encouragement to George Bush and on his upcoming presidency, let him know some of the challenges that he'd be facing and how he could overcome those. 4 years later, President George W. Bush left a similar note for his successor, President Bill Clinton. Clinton then left one for George W. Bush. Bush left one for Barack Obama. Obama left one for President Trump. And President Trump left one for Joe Biden. And that's so great that these men can do that, to encourage each other, to let them know what was ahead. I struggle to think about if I had to write a letter to someone who was succeeding me, what would I say in that letter? And if I'm being really honest, if a letter were written to me, what would it say based on my attitudes and my actions? That's the scary letter, right? Pretty much the entirety of the New Testament is a letter to Christians who would come later, Christians who didn't get to witness Jesus firsthand, Christians who didn't get to see the apostles. A letter written to Christians to say, here was our struggles. Here's how we overcame. Here's how we were able to succeed and thrive in Christianity in the first century, and you can too. Great letters that we can learn so much from. I love looking at letters in the New Testament and seeing the encouragement and seeing the teaching that is in there. The letters I really love in the New Testament are the letters written from Jesus in Revelation chapter 2 and 3 to the 7 churches of Asia. In those letters, he writes, and we're not going to read them all, but he writes to Ephesus. He says, you were so good. When you first started, you were amazing. But right now you've left your first love. So we need to figure out how to get you back to where you were. I think about if a letter was written to me like that. That could probably be said to me at sometimes. Man, you used to be so on fire for Jesus. And we need to get you back to that point. Maybe that's an appropriate letter for some of you. I know we've been in pandemic for a long time. We haven't been able to meet like we have. We haven't been able to do some of the service projects that we usually do as a congregation. There haven't been a lot of the opportunities that we've had to serve. Maybe you look at yourself and say, man, I used to be so on fire. We have an opportunity to get back there. And Jesus calls us. Maybe that would be in your letter. Maybe he'd write you a letter like he wrote to Smyrna, where he said, do not fear. We've got a lot of things to be afraid of right now. Maybe your letter needs to say, do not fear. Maybe your letter is like the letter that got sent to Pergamum that said, you have been faithful in a tough spot. I know so many of you have. So many of you have gone through things that have been so hard during this pandemic. A lot of you have struggled through sickness. A lot of you have struggled through watching your family be sick. Many of you have had to say goodbye to family members in the last year, and that's so tough. And I believe that this letter is for you. You have been faithful during tough times. And that's so good to hear, isn't it? Sometimes when we struggle so hard, to be recognized, to show that we're trying, we're here, we're doing the best we can. God sees that. Maybe your letter might be like the letter that was sent to Thyatira. You're loving, you're faithful, you're a service-minded person, you're patient, but you need to watch out because you're starting to allow some sin to creep up in your life. So be careful. Maybe that might be you right now. I've seen that in my life sometimes. I feel like I'm faithful. I feel like I'm doing good, but there's that extra stuff that's kind of creeping in that we got to be careful for. Hopefully your letter wouldn't be like Sardis, where Jesus says, you're dead. Wake up. Wake up. You're dead. What's going on right now? Philadelphia, he wrote that you have patiently endured and you will be rewarded. Again, that recognition that our efforts are not in vain. God sees us. Jesus sees what we're doing. He sees our efforts. He sees that we're trying. And he wants to reward us for our efforts. And then he has the letter to Laodicea where he says, pick a side, guys. You can't be hot and cold. It's time to pick a side. It's time to decide to follow Jesus. It's, are you for us or are you against us? These beautiful letters written all throughout the New Testament teach us and give us guidance, but also help us to see and help us to think about, if a letter was written to me today, if Jesus wrote a letter to me, what would it say? Would it say, keep on what you're doing? Would it say, you're doing great, but you need to straighten up? Would it say, hey, you've gone through it, and I see that? Hopefully it wouldn't say something like, wake up. Hopefully it wouldn't say something like, pick a side. But if it did, we could be grateful in that, because His mercy is still available, and we can pick a side, and we can still wake up today and take advantage of all the mercies that God has to offer. I hope your letter would be great. I hope that you have a great day, and I love you all.